Well, Nicole and Jay, thank you for letting me come here to talk about tiny homes ADUs. And if you don't know what ADU is, it is
an accessory dwelling unit.
And what's interesting about that right now is since 2016, the city of St. Paul and Minneapolis are allowing ADUs on city properties.
Yes, on all residential lots.
So this is Jamie and Nicole with YardHomes, and they build ADUs, tiny homes. So can I ask you, how did you get started in this? What's the history? How did YardHomes happen?
Well, I can start if you want. So I am a banker by trade. I started off as a financial institution consultant and then became a banker, but I've always had a passion for home and housing. So I've been on a number of different housing boards, including the Habitat for Humanity board. And as a banker, I designed a lot of different housing products. So when I left the banking industry, I went and worked for the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, and as part of that process, we were researching innovation in housing and innovative housing concepts outside of the state of Minnesota.
What are innovative products? Could you expand just a little on
Just
that?
different ways to build housing. So you've probably heard of 3D printing as
Yes.
a way to build a tiny house.
There's one on Long Island, I believe.
Yep. There's a lot in Austin in the southern states. It's a great,
Yes.
great way to do that. But as part of that process, I became involved with the Construction Revolution, which was a conference that was held here in 2019, where we brought some of the best innovators in housing and modular technology to Minnesota to talk with both builders, financiers in this space in the residential and commercial housing industry. And I got to meet Jamie through that process.
Well, it sounds like it was a fascinating conference. I never heard of it. So are they ever going to do it again?
We hope so.
so.
And now that we're after COVID. So the then Governor Dayton had something called the Governor's Task Force on Housing,
Yes.
which Nicole was part of. And then we became part of the follow-up, the Construction Revolution, which sought to bring innovation to the way we build houses, with an
Okay.
effort to bring the cost down and the performance up. So
Yes.
that's how we met.
Great.
Yep.
And how did YardHomes happen after this divine inspiration?
We fell in love with the idea of improving the way housing is built and bringing that to Minnesota. And we studied all the different ways that could happen. And we really settled on the ability to build modular. And then we also settled on the ability to build small, right? And so this was exploding in the East Coast and the West Coast, but wasn't really happening a lot here in Minnesota.
Yeah, so we, as our first business outing, we went to Las Vegas for the International Builder Show.
Oh, sure.
And,
You went for the show.
Yes, and we were blown away. We met all these really interesting people, mostly on the coast. We were the only people from the Midwest.
Yep.
Right.
And we got inspiration from some things they tried. So while what we're doing seems a little bit new here, it's not new in the context of the U.S., the whole U.S. And a lot of the things that we're doing have been proven in places like Los Angeles, San Diego, Portland, Seattle. And many of the vendors are coming this way. It's very exciting.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of the myths, Minnesotans, we're a little more conservative on the building side, is we can't do it here. California is always 86 and sunny. So what big deal is it? But how about Canada?
Well, yeah, so there's a lot of ranges of innovation. And so maybe touching first on the building envelope and the
Yes.
way we build this.
Explain envelope.
So if you start with a nice jacket full of down, you're going to be warmer. If you
Right.
start with the shell of the building, the walls, the roof, and the floor, the way you would build a jacket, your inside is going to be warmer and more comfortable.
More secure.
So that's what we need to start with, the building envelope. And that is the way we put in insulation, what kind of windows we use, the level of attention that we apply to the details. And then once we have a tight building envelope, then we can use much smaller mechanical devices. We can burn less fossil fuel. We can just be much more efficient. So that's part of what we're really focused on. How do we bring innovation and high performance to the way the building works?
Right. So when we're talking about your yard home, tiny homes, they are high performance homes.
Yes.
And so what was the inception? When did you start here?
Oh, when I was young lad. So I've been in the real estate business for many years, and I've always been interested in the construction technology and how people build things. So we've been fortunate to have a group of like-minded vendors and partners.
Okay.
So we're all trying to do something better. And I think that's the sort of attitude that prevails the group of people we like to work with. We're not comfortable with the status quo. We want to do something better. We want to meet unmet needs. We sometimes have to educate about needs that people are not fully appreciating about how our built
I
environment
think we
works.
always have to educate.
Yeah.
I think we talk about the cost of housing, but when we talk about the cost of housing, we always just talk about the cost to build the house.
Yeah.
We never talk about
Yes.
the cost to run the house. And so
Maintenance.
and in the sustainability
And
of it,
utilities,
right?
right.
So if you build it right and better in the beginning, it's going to cost you less to maintain it and run it in the future. And so
It'll
we
have a
feel-
longer life
It'll have a
as
longer
well.
life.
I will say, from most of the buyers that I work with, they do want to know what are the heating bills.
So some people follow HERS ratings. So
Yes.
HERS rating is a great way to sort of bring together all those factors. And you want a lower HERS rating, and you actually now want a 0 to negative HERS rating because you're introducing renewable energy as a way
Right.
so you don't have to pay any utility bills. I don't like paying utility bills. I don't think a lot of people like to pay utility bills.
And most people explaining, from ResNet, what is a HERS score?
Yeah, well, I won't go super detailed, but essentially.
No, don't. Just give us a global.
You can get really geeky if you want.
Yeah,
but-
so
We're talking to normal people.
yeah, so think about the way people buy refrigerators.
Okay.
If you open the refrigerator, there's a sticker inside the door, and that shows the expected energy consumption for the year.
Correct.
The HERS rating is sort of like the sticker on the door of a house.
Good way to.
So
that's a good.
if we
yeah,
think about
comparison.
how valuable that information is on their appliances, why aren't we asking that question of our builders? Why aren't we testing our own homes? We should be. And so the HERS rating is done by a professional who comes in, does some various tests, does some calculations,
They
and
do
gives
the
you a
blow
number.
dryer or the
Yeah, blower door
door
test. And that gives you
blower.
a number, and that allows you to compare house 1 to house 2 to house 3.
Okay.
So that's something that we're very sensitive to. We had somebody come in and do a blower door test and come up with a full-blown deal.
And?
We were okay. We weren't as good as I hoped, and we're not as good as where we will be with some new technology.
What was it? So let's keep us in suspense.
Oh,
Come on. Come
well,
on.
now you have to ask me something for me to
North of
remember.
2.
I don't remember.
North of 2, but less than 4.
Yeah.
How much?
North of 2, but less than 4.
But that was the air changes per hour. The HERS rating actually was 30 to 40 something.
Okay. So, YardHomes builds high-performance tiny homes and ADUs. Do you want to talk about the construction and what people need to know and what a high-performance tiny home is?
Sure. So people are accustomed to buying cars and buying appliances. And so if you're buying a car, you're going to be comparing miles per gallon. If you buy an appliance, you're going to be looking at the Energy Star rating. So these are scientifically derived comparative tools to think about how well one refrigerator performs versus another. If you translate that to a housing environment, there's two key measures. One is the air change per hour, which is described as ACH.
And why is that important to people?
That relates to how much air filters through the envelope of your building. Basically, how
And changes
leaky,
over, yeah.
leaky your house is.
Okay.
The second is the HERS rating. So those are two measures that I would encourage all consumers to consider when they're making their housing choices. They should ask their builders. They should ask their
And
developers.
it's so funny you should say that, because I talked to 2 builders last week, and neither of them had a clue what their HERS score
Yeah.
was. It's something, but it's a little touchy, and if the builder doesn't have a really low score, he doesn't want to talk about it.
No, but this is something that's going to come our way. So this is something that many states require be disclosed on a disclosure statement before a sale.
Yes.
Minnesota doesn't yet have all of that, but it's coming. It's a lot of other places around the world. So those are the two measures.
In the Parade of Homes book, which happens every spring and every fall, when they'll have a listing with a particular builder, they will give a HERS score. And there can be a slight variation because, it depends on who
Sure.
does the thing, but it'll give you an idea of where they are.
Now, if you start with those two sensitivities, those two metrics, then you have to think about how you're building. So the YardHomes approach is to build things differently. We're not building with all the different parts on site. We're using factories, using offsite construction. So we're using full volumetric modular, where the entirety of the home is built in the factory.
Why is that an advantage in Minnesota? So
Oh,
people
we have-
don't have to imagine.
Yeah, so you'll go to a factory and you'll see, my goodness, it's freezing outside, but everybody inside is wearing short sleeves. Everybody inside has exactly the right tool at the right place, and none of their wood is wet. So by building inside in a factory-controlled environment, you can build better.
And how long can you continue to build?
All year round, 365. And it's a great way to expand our workforce. There's lots of attractiveness to go to one place, work a regular shift as opposed to driving all over.
Not working in the rain.
Yeah.
Not working when it's 20 degrees.
So that's an important part of how we approach our building, is using offsite construction. So full volumetric modular is one extreme where the entirety of the building is built in a factory. The other end of the extreme is panelization.
Okay.
These are where kits are created and they're stacked on top of each other, say wall on top of so forth. And so the entire building envelope has been created in a factory environment, broken into parts. Those parts are then brought to the site and they're clicked together essentially. So that brings a much better performance for your building.
Should we talk a little bit about the panels over here?
Yeah, that would be great.
So we shifted a couple of feet over. This is a demonstration of what the panels look like partially assembled. So I don't know how this works. Jamie, Nicole?
So what you're looking at here is a SIP panel, a structurally insulated panel. A SIP panel is like a sandwich. You get one side of bread, which is an OSB, oriented strand board. This is a structural OSB. The middle part of the sandwich is some sort of insulating foam, and then the same thing is on the other side. So you've got this pressed together with a lot of pressure, with glue, and that assembly is stronger than what we just saw, which is a traditional wood wall.
So this is about 8 inches, correct?
6.5.
6.5
So
inches.
6.5 inches will give you R26, whereas if we use 6.5 inches over there, we'll have R23, R24. So we get more R value.
Wow.
Also, there are no seams, so there's no air infiltration. In the standard code, you have to have, remember the ACH I mentioned, of 3 or less in a standard home. This will be 0.25 to 0.5, so a lot tighter building
Wow,
envelope.
that means no leaking.
Yeah, so no air leaking.
So this is the foam in here. Just explain, people think foam is kind of squishy and whatever,
So this is rigid insulation,
okay?
unlike the fiberglass bad insulation that you will see in most homes, that kind of pink stuff.
Yep.
That mushes.
Yep.
And you actually want that to be more fluffy, just like you want your
Because
down
it's
jacket
just
to be
insulation,
fluffy.
right?
But this is a rigid foam, so it's inert. It won't change its characteristics over time because this will last 30, 40, 50 years. So you want a rigid foam. So this is why we use this product. And this product comes in different widths, which means different performance characteristics. So the roof panel would be twice this. A roof panel would be about 12 inches.
I saw that, 12 inches of insulation on the roof. I was
Yeah.
blown away.
So that will be R54. The Minnesota code is R49. And then the floor, we would do a 10-inch, and the code requires R38.
What do you mean the floor you do a 10-inch? 10-inch what?
Same thing becomes the floor.
Okay.
So so there's
And you insulate under that as well?
the SIP panel becomes the insulation. If
Okay.
you were going to do a more traditional foundation system, like we're standing on concrete,
Right.
underneath the concrete would be layers of rigid foam insulation, and that's required now. So we're moving in a direction of a more high performance standard, but this is, beyond that.
Explain why the foam under.
Well, the earth is going to keep you cooler in the summer.
It's about 40 degrees all the time.
But it's not the temperature you want in the winter. So you want to have a separation between that temperature and your inside temperature that you're turning your heat on and down. So you want to insulate the entirety of your environment.
So what you're saying is the ground is always cool around 40 degrees. And in the winter, it's less than 40 degrees and keeps sucking energy out of the house
It's
if
a,
you
it's
don't
a heat
insulate.
sink, essentially,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So a
heat
SIP
sink.
panel is a great technology to use.
Great, great. So when you get this, do you get it all assembled or you can assemble on site?
So it actually will arrive on site as a kit of parts, almost like
Okay.
a little Lego or erector set that your kids would play with. And
So you build it like Legos?
you build it like Legos. A little bit heavier though, quite a bit
Yeah.
heavier. This unit, what we've got displayed here, took about 4 hours to build, and 3 individuals. One of them that had obviously far more construction knowledge than Jamie and I, somebody that had worked in the field, and then 2 gophers, me and Jamie, putting it together,
Yeah.
sliding
Okay, and
things
I
around.
notice you have channels, holes in the
So
wall.
that's built for any sort of electrical that needs to be
Right there,
plugged in?
2 levels there, so.
There's actually a whole grid that you can't quite see. So where the code requires the outlets to be, then
Okay.
the channels, where you would normally put a switch to turn on the lights, there's a channel.
The channel there,
Yeah.
right. So you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah,
And the roofing is made of the same material.
correct.
So you have insulation everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what you need. And so you've created a wonderful built environment where there's no thermal bridging. So this is a nuance of high performance buildings that differ from the building we just first saw. So when you have, let's say, outside cool air in the winter and inside warm air, the part that allows for the energy to transfer are the pieces of wood that are connecting to each other. So that's a thermal bridge.
And it's a gap, it's always like a little air gap.
Actually, no, it's just a different
Oh.
material.
Okay,
So the benefit of a SIP panel is that there's no wood that allows for the energy to transfer from the outside to the inside because of that part of the middle of the sandwich. That's your, I forget the term, that prevents thermal bridging.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's completely tight. So how long does it take to put a whole house together?
So honestly, about a week
Okay.
with a skilled crew, and a crew meaning 3 people, right?
Okay. Now, I don't see any windows here. Now, this is a model, I know. Talk about where and how you would put windows. in
So
one of
our
these.
particular, this is the YardHomes City Cabin series, which
Okay.
is a modular tiny home. So people can elect to get the small, the medium, and the large. We show some of those different dimensions. One of the ways that happens is because each wall is a panel that's 4 feet wide. You can select a panel that has a window, you can select a panel that has a
Okay.
door, or you can select a panel that's just solid. And so the nice thing is we offer the customer the ability to customize for their site. Some people may want to look out 2 windows, some people say, oh, that's kind of an unsightly alley, let's just put a solid wall there. So those are the different ways. And so what this that we're seeing today was really our R&D place. We experimented, we checked out various things. That then translated into drawings that go back to the factory, and they use computer-aided design, and they use an automated saw that cuts these openings to a 1/16 of an inch tolerance. So the openings are exactly the size that you need for the
For the
windows.
window, right. All of this, how much information, what do you have on your website that people could refer to?
Well, a fair amount. We try to keep it simple because at the end of the day, people just want their environment.
Right.
There's not a horrendous amount of technical detail. We're always available if people have questions. We enjoy this, and we'd love to talk, and we'd love to learn more from people who are
Do you have some of
experts.
the designs on
Oh,
your
yeah,
website?
so we've got the designs, and in fact...
So you can see
Yeah,
it.
we've got the footprints, the designs.
Yeah.
We also on our social media try to display a lot of different designs that are out there that
And
could be
3D.
opportunities as well in both, 3D as well as.
So you have the basic designs, but you can take it anywhere.
Well, we're not trying to take it completely custom in the sense that we're back to inefficiency.
Okay.
So, yes, you can have a custom home and you can put a 2x4 or 2x6 and this and that, but that leads to a lot of cost. So we have
Okay.
a degree of flexibility and customization within the kit. So if
Okay.
you ask us to change and not have a SIP wall, we're going to say, I'm not sure that we're the right people for you. We'll
Okay.
give you a SIP wall, we'll give you the window or the door or the solid. And then there's all kinds of different colors and materials and all kinds of things that people touch. But the basic kit of parts allows us to drive cost effectiveness. And that's what's important to us too.
Yes, and so now you mentioned that this is good for maybe 50 years. Could it could last longer?
Sure, this is a technology that's been around 30 or 40 years.
Okay,
The technology that we use in our traditional stick frame has been around longer, but there's a lot of changes within the walls. It's interesting, when you see hurricanes,
and they show the pictures of what is left standing.
Flat line, yeah.
The SIP houses are left standing. The regular houses are not.
Even Warren Buffett says, why are we using the same methods to build that we did in the 1800s?
Right. We feel that way.
Yes, so this is, but why now is this coming more popular?
I think just the cost of building products is skyrocketing. And I also think that people here in Minnesota are looking for different building processes, right? They're looking for more sustainability, right? They're thinking longer term. Also health-wise, right? So we're actually working on more iterations of this that bring different elements into the foam, right? So how can we make this even healthier for the environment in our next version?
Yeah, people have awakened to the significance of spending time indoors and asthma rates and how their kids' health is.
Well,
And they're looking
especially
for
from
more-
COVID, we were all, there we
Yeah,
were.
Yeah.
So I think people wanted to expand, they wanted to change, and I sold to a number of renters last year. They want something for themselves,
Right.
where they're not restricted and they're not completely on top of each other.
Yeah, I think the tiny house movement is basically just an elevation of society's view on stuff, right? How much stuff do we actually need, and where do we want to live, right?
Right.
Multi-housing complexes are great. They create a lot of great community with all sorts of people together, but can you create that same community by giving people direct access to outdoors, right? With a door right out to the outside, as well as big, beautiful
absolutely.
windows. There's lots of opportunities to.
Now, you have several projects in process. Can you talk a little bit about what your projects are?
Yeah, so we have about 24 units that have to get installed by the end of October. That
Wow.
are what we say coming off of the lines right as we speak.
Where are they?
Well, Minneapolis and St. Paul mostly. That's because that's where we've
Urban.
targeted our customers right now. Although
Okay.
urban and outstate, we've got some projects that involve resorts in northern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. But yes, some of our projects are affordable housing projects that we're working with nonprofit partners around growing the amount of housing on a single lot. Some of them are cluster developments that we're working with individuals that have a lot, and they'd like to put 5 or 6 of these on a lot and create a little community garden in that lot and a
Now,
community
how much
space.
space or how much acreage do you need to put 5 or 6?
It really kind of depends upon, typically it's about 10,000 acres.
Square feet.
Square feet, sorry, 10,000 square
Whoa.
feet. Acres, 10,000 square feet. But it really depends upon that city's code as well as
So that's
kind
a
of
little
the,
less than a quarter of an acre.
the
Yeah.
design layout.
We've got a very clever one that is 2 city lots right next to each other. It's 80 feet of frontage on a street. I think it goes back to the alley, 140 something feet. And there's a lovely setup of 5 of these small houses, and it's organized around a garden. And they're all
Nice.
handicap accessible. Just
That-
this. So that's a delightful place to live.
Who's buying? Who's the typical?
Renting.
So, well, it's a lot. It's a variety. The one that we didn't perceive was the resort community. I think that is a result of COVID. They realized that they have space and they want more units and they want them fast, right? And we can do that. And so, as the typical construction process might take 18 months to build a hotel or a couple of houses, we can do this in a couple of months, right? If you can get through zoning
Wow.
and planning, we can deliver in a couple of months. So that's a surprise for us.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can go from several months down to a couple of months, how much does that save the builder in labor cost?
It saves you
Wow.
in labor costs, it saves you in cost of funds, right? You're automatically paying
So
on
a lot of the academics will say that this way of approaching the construction should save 20 to 40% of the total cost. So each site is different, each technology is different,
Right.
each crew has a different level of experience, but this has a chance of being a game changer. And that's again how we met.
that. Yeah.
Well, we've covered
Yeah.
that. Maybe we should go inside and talk
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
interior.
It's
Absolutely.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Come see.
Nicole, now we're inside the tiny home.
The most important space.
Yes, of course. This is where we live. So tell us, how do you plan a tiny kitchen
Oh, gosh.
and an
Yeah.
energy efficient kitchen?
And still get what you want, right?
Yes,
that's
and
the
have it
goal
look
here.
gorgeous.
And have it look gorgeous. That's the goal. So when we put together the design for this unit, we really thought about all ages being in these
Okay.
units, not just elderly, not just handicapped, but young people, even people with children possibly. So a couple of different design concepts that we took into consideration was how we laid out the kitchen, right?
Yes.
And so we knew it also needed to be a part of the entertainment space. So essentially a galley kitchen was the design that we went with. You'll notice the stove. These are some universal design concepts that we took. The stove is an induction stove where all of the utilities to operate the stove are on the front.
Okay.
So this can be anybody of all ages can use this, as well as somebody that may be in a wheelchair.
And tell us
has
what's
to-
wonderful about induction.
Induction is it's definitely it doesn't get hot to the touch, so
Right.
you don't have to worry about children or anybody burning themselves. But it's also more cost effective to run, right?
Super.
So the microwave again is down low, which makes it easier for somebody to bend over and take something out of the microwave, or somebody that is just at that level to reach up.
Or somebody's in a wheelchair. I noticed too your doors are wide,
Yep, we did wider doors again.
so
More
that's wheelchair friendly.
wheelchair friendly, but also opens up the space more, right?
Yes.
And it feels more open. The rooms feel to flow better. From one end of the unit all the way to the other end of the unit.
And
We
the
did-
refrigerator and the dishwasher are smaller size.
Yep,
Compact?
we did a more compact refrigerator in this one, and dishwasher, 18 inches on the dishwasher. Again, handling and opening those is very user friendly, and the freezer down low makes it more
Okay.
accessible for anybody trying to get into that as well. So.
And the bathroom, it'd be a little difficult to go in there,
Yep.
but talk a little about the
The ba-
efficiency of the bathroom.
The bathroom is very spacious. We did not do a fully handicap accessible bathroom by putting up all of the handicap bars and whatnot. Only because what
But it
we've
could be
made,
done.
but it could be done. The package
Sure.
is there; those could be added. We made the bathroom very big and spacious, so that one could obviously. So that one is good airflow in the bathroom. Two, if you were in a wheelchair or a walker, you could make a full circle in the bathroom and still not feel like you're trapped. The sink allows for
That's very
the
smart.
wheelchair to go underneath it. It allows you to get closer to the sink. And in that bathroom, you could also do, a shower that was.
So all of your
Very
designs have the same kind of smart design.
Yes. We've worked with design consultants. We've worked with our manufacturer that gave us many of these ideas to help incorporate just a spacious feel. The height of the ceiling, the angle of the ceiling as well was specific to create a more open feel and open concept.
Wonderful. So tiny homes, ADUs, who are they designed for?
Well, they're really designed for anybody. There really is, and anybody can use them, right? I mean, people can use them in their backyard to expand their living footprint if they wanted to.
The mother-in-law unit?
They could bring their mother-in-law,
The grandmother-in-law.
their grandmother, the child that comes home from college that doesn't
never
quite have a
leaves.
job, and then, but even just additional space for the family if they wanted to create, a play space for themselves.
So investors would build them for Airbnbs?
Airbnb, if your city allows, you always want to check your city ordinance around that. People have used them for, building out their own businesses, yoga studio, knock down the walls and you've got a beautiful open space, and hair salon, whatever you think
Wow, I
you
didn't
could
think of that.
possibly use an ADU for.
Nichol, thank you so much. This is so informative. I think people will be really excited. Can you tell us how to be in touch with you?
So we are everywhere. We are at www.yardhomesmn.com. You can find us on Facebook at YardHomesMN. You can find us on Instagram at YardHomesMN. We try to post lots of design ideas on Instagram. I'm at Minnesota Housing Girl as well, tweeting about what we're doing. And you can go to the website, and Jamie and myself have our email addresses on the website as well. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And a yard home might be in your future.
Yay! Hopefully.